And as you grow in your skills, you're going to be like, wow, I got some skills I didn't have. I got mad skills. And the reality is mad skills are very dangerous, because the reality is it doesn't matter. Do you realize that at one point in time, God chose to use a donkey to speak his word? And skills don't matter at all. God's will is all that matters. Yeah, he'll use your skills. But if he's not using your skills and you're using your skills, you are building sandcastles that will be knocked over by the next wind or wave. But when we build, allowing God to work through it so he's the actual builder, then we build fruit that will abide and last. And that's what we need to be able to live from, to be able to recognize this is the powerful reality, to be able to see this. And the Catechism stresses the importance of this role, and it doesn't go very far. In fact, I'm still working from the first page here. I quoted the first sentence a moment ago, and I want to sit back and say now we're all the way down to Article 2. It says, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you, and I'll be with you always. And in Article 1, he says, God calls together all people, scattered and divided by sin, into the unity of his family, the church. We have to manifest this reality. It comes from our divine intimacy. To not think of the church as an institution. Sure, the church has aspects that are institutional. It is not essentially institutional. It is essentially a family. And the world doesn't believe that. It believes that we're an institution with rules and regulations. In fact, they believe those rules and regulations are outdated and antiquated and untrue. They don't apply in the modern world. We've got to reset their expectations by letting them to see a church which is actually the mystical body of Jesus Christ, that it is for the joy set before us that we have entered into this church, having been called by Christ, and inviting all men and women who are divided and scattered by sin into this unity that we all long for. That's why we go, just like he went. And that leads me to the second of our habits, to be able to recognize, yes, divine intimacy, but also authentic friendship. And I would argue that in some ways, the habits are interesting. We talked about divine intimacy, now authentic friendship, and clarity and conviction about spiritual multiplication. And each of these are kind of odd because we do some of them well and some of them poorly. We actually have habits of doing them well and get awkward. Let me tell you what I'm talking about. I would argue that we, as a group of people, live divine intimacy in an amazing sort of way. However, the challenge is that the call to divine intimacy is an infinite challenge, so we can never get where we need to go. It's always way beyond us. We will never live in the intimacy that we were created for until we're brought into the beatific vision. And we're told by the saints that when we're in the presence of the beatific vision, we actually won't be able to take our eyes off of God. The reality of the Blessed Trinity will be so mesmerizing, so captivating, that we will be compelled by great love to live divine intimacy perfectly. We can't do that here. But compared to our peers, compared to the other 25, 26-year-olds, and the other 22-year-olds that you're going to be leading, I would argue that we play a ball here on the curve. Let me talk about authentic friendship for a moment. I would actually argue that authentic friendship is a funny one for us. We hire some of the best people we know. They're just absolutely amazing. You're absolutely amazing. But when we tell you to live authentic friendship, it's almost like a doctor says, okay, breathe normally. Well, see, I can't breathe normally when you tell me to, because breathing normally is something I do unconsciously. Now I'm conscious of it, so it's not normal. And I say, in some ways, we say, okay, go be authentic friends. Well, I have lots of friends. I'm really, friendship is one of my home games. I'm great at it. Yeah, go on campus and live authentic friendship. And then we're conscious of it, and we start doing some wonky sort of stuff. And I want to sit back and say, take your time. Our principle is based upon 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8, where St. Paul is speaking to the church at Thessalonica that he helped to found, and he's not there with them. He's reminding them of the way that he proclaimed the gospel to them. And he says this in 1 Thessalonians 2:8, having thus a fond affection for you, we were well pleased to impart not only the gospel of God, but our very lives, because you had become dear to us. And we want you to be able to do that, to be able to impart not only the gospel, but your very lives. But I would argue, give your missionaries and give yourself the time to be patient with people. I think sometimes we get so busy serving those students that are at the Newman Center, that are aspiring towards holiness, which is a beautiful thing and we should never stop, that we forget that we're primarily an outreach organization. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations.